We have implemented the API call logic and we are using axios for that one. But we don't need that one in reality. There is a built-in API in browser and that is called as fetch, and we can do the same request with that one. So let's do that. So just commenting out this part, and instead of axios, let's call fetch. Now in this one, we are going to be setting the path as a first parameter, API 10 users, and it is not having a function like post or anything, so we define those parts in the second parameter, and this one is an object, and in this object we define which method we are using, and the method is post, and then we set the request body, and the request body will be similar, will be this one. So just uncommenting this, and let's have this one as variable here, say request body, and this is taking the body as string, so we convert this body to a string like this, JSON stringify request body, and we have to specifically tell that this is a JSON content, so we add headers and we set the content dash type header, and the type of this body is application / JSON, and closing the curly brace here, and that's it. So saving this one. Now in test console we can see there's a failure, and if we check the exact message right here, it is saying the fetch is not defined. This message is thrown because these tests are running in Node.js environment, and in Node.js we don't have fetch, but in browser we have fetch, and let's show that one. So just opening console once again, clearing this one, filling the form, and hitting sign up, and here we can see the request is being generated, and if we check the payload, here we can see the values we are setting. So basically this is working just like it used to work with the axios. So from user point of view, nothing is changed, nothing is broken. Now let's fix this. So stopping the test console, first thing we will do is make sure this fetch is available in Node.js, and we do that by installing another dependency, npm I, this is development dependency, and the package name is wg-fetch. Now let's import this one, import what wg-fetch, and saving this, and let's run the test once again. Again, the test is failing, but this time we are not seeing the fetch is not defined error anymore. So this is failing because the test implementation we have here is looking for this axios. We are mocking the axios post function, but we are not calling the axios post in our component. So this is confirming that the test is not failing because of the implementation, but because of our test setup. When our tests are dealing with the internal implementations, like in this one, we are dealing with the axios, the library we are using, these kind of tests became brittle and easy to fail after refactoring. So let's replace this one. Instead of mocking the axios, we are going to mock the fetch of window. The fetch is coming with the window, and we will just assign mock function to it. Then again we get the call history like this. We get the first call, and we can get the parameters, but this one is a bit different. There are two parameters. The first one is URL, the second one is the object. In Axios, the second one was the request body, but in this one we have another object, and the actual body is right here in this object's body field. So the body is, we have body field, and this is a stringified version of this JSON object. So we can convert it to JSON back like this, JSON parse like this, and the rest of the part is okay, saving this one. Now we can see the test is passing. The mocking is a useful technique to make our test to run in a predictable environment, but as we can see here, it is directly related to our internal implementation. Like here, we switch from axios to fetch and our tests failed, but on the other hand, from user point of view, in browser, nothing is changed. The scenario is working as expected. So we must be creating our tests as close as possible to real user interactions, and luckily for this case, instead of mocking the fetch or axios, we can use a library which will be intercepting the requests which are actually going to target server. And with this interceptor, we can mimic the behavior of backends. So let's do that. First, let's install this library, this mock service worker. So stopping test console once again and installing this dependency. So installing this dependency, npm I install development dependency -d, and msw is the package name. So running the test once again. Now let's update our test. First, let's remove these axios and fetch imports. Now we are going to import a functionality from MSW and from MSW's Node folder. We are going to get setup server, and in our test, in this one, before doing anything, let's create our server. So we will have a server here, and we do that by running setup server, and we will set request handlers for this server, and for that one we are going to import another function, and this is from directly MSW. This function is rest. So we are going to add handlers to this setup server, and we are going to handle the request, the post requests coming to this endpoint. So we define that handler like this, rest post, and the path is API 10 users, and the request will be handled in a function here, and this function is taking 3 parameters: request, response, and context. And here we can mimic the behavior of the server, like we can just return a response, and we can set context status to 200. Okay, so this is a server. It is handling these requests coming to this endpoint, and it is returning 200. Okay, So that's how we can create a server in our test. And here we are running server listen. Then we are rendering the sign up page. Then we are filling the form, clicking the button. So we are just removing these parts. Now this server is going to receive the request, and we can get the actual request body. So let's get the request body, and let's store this one right here. Let's call this one a variable here, and this is request body, and we will be setting request body as soon as we receive a request to this endpoint. So our form will be sent to backend after this click, and that is going to be handled right here, and we will be taking the request body from that incoming request, and we will store that value in this request body. And then this is important. We need to wait at this line to make sure the request body is updated with the incoming request. So after clicking the button, the request is not immediately handled right here in this request handler. That process is running asynchronous. So for a workaround, let's await server close. Until that time, server will be handling the request, and it will be updating this request body with the incoming request body. And then we can just remove these parts, and since we have the request body here, we can use it in the expect. By the way, I removed the fetch import, but we need that one because we are using that fetch in the component, so saving this one. And here we can see the test is passing. So with this way, in our test, we don't care about the implementation details of our application. Let's confirm that. Let's replace the fetch with axios again. So uncommenting this part and removing fetch, and also removing this request body, and importing axios back, saving this one, and this one is also passing. So again, mocking is a very good technique in scenarios where external services are taking place. With mocking, we are able to create a reliable test environment, but the downside of it, our tests are being highly coupled with our implementation. So if we can avoid mocking, then we should be avoiding it. And this MSW library is a great replacement for backend in client tests. I'm going to use the axios in my implementation, so we can uninstall the dependency of what.wg. By the way, this was a workaround. Later we are going to replace this implementation with a more robust, solid way. So just stopping the test console and uninstalling the what.wg fetch. We don't need that one anymore. And removing that one from this import too.